Cairo, Seattle.
It's time to get schooled with the professor, John Clayton.
Welcome to School with the Professor. We're talking about the transition from a good professional football career, good sports career, into broadcasting or whatever it is. And joining us right now is Willie Colon, who had been with the Steelers for 6 years, the New York Jets for 3 years. And, Willie, it's not an easy job to try to make that transition because, the love for football carries, but at some point you have to make the transition and get away from it. Still, you're 33 years old. You're still young enough to play. What first led you to now realize, okay, it's time to get out of football after a very good career?
Well, for me, it was the body. In my heart, in my mind, I felt like I deserve a 15-year career, but, your knees and, you go through some of the issues that I was plagued with. You have to start listening to your body and worry about the mortality after football. And that's the position I was faced with. And so I decided to hang it up.
What ailments kind of went through? Because I know looking at you had some tough ones to try to come back
Right,
from.
Yeah. Torn Achilles, torn bicep, torn tricep, both in the right arm, multiple knee scopes. Bad back at times, hamstring pulls, just the works. And, a lot of times you, as a ball player, there's something to be said when you look at the James Harrisons and Tom Brady's, how well they take care of their bodies, and that's why they're able to play as long as they have. For me, I did the best I could in the off season to prepare, but, my diet obviously could have been better. And your style play, I was a rumbler, so your style play contributes to a lot of your injuries, especially as you get, long in the tooth. So it was a combination thing for me, but, I take nothing, and I don't wish anything to take back because, I was able to play for a great franchise with Pittsburgh Steelers and, win a Super Bowl, was able to go to two Super Bowls, win one, lose one, play with Hall of Famers, like Troy, Polamalu, Hines Ward, Ben Roethlisberger. So the list goes on in that regard. So I'm blessed. God has given me so much as far as being in so many big-time matchups and contribute to winning them. A kid from the Bronx that went to Hofstra, I couldn't ask for anything more.
Yeah, and that's the amazing part. Now, so you're let's say 28, 29 years old, and just watching the league get younger and younger and younger. So you're sitting there with some of the other offensive linemen, some of the defensive linemen, and talking about the future in that. When they start to the conversation goes, how many years do you think that most people think? Now, obviously, when you had James Harrison, he kind of just changes everything going to the age of 39. Sure. But, most, particularly, I know you were a tackle. I know a lot of guards, it's hard to get past the age of 32. And when you're sitting there 28, 29 years old and you have that conversation, what seemed to be the thoughts coming from the players around you and players you talk to?
Well, a lot of it is just you start learning how to really prepare your body for Sunday, getting proper rest, eating the right things. A lot of guys who are older, emphasize just getting rest, just getting off your feet after a long day. You don't be out in the clubs or bars or, when Thursday and Friday comes along, you really want to start really getting your rest and kind of putting your feet up and having a proper treatment. And so it's all about prep. When you're younger, you don't really think about prep. You're just up and running. And, if you wake up and you feel good, you're just going to play. But I know it's pretty much like you said, after 28, it kind of seemed like the spell wore off. I turned into the big ugly pumpkin, and you just kind of, start feeling things that you never felt before. And, you start kind of using alternative medicines to get around and kind of be mobile out there. And that's just the mindset. You just want to get through it. You just want to keep pushing.
Yeah, and that's
but everybody has their clock.
Yeah, and it just seems that, and I think the league is even getting younger now, and I think that changed in 2011 when they had the new collective bargaining agreement, and the middle class just kind of evaporated because now it is so difficult for a player to get a good third contract. You get the 4-year deal now. Then you get maybe you're lucky enough to get a 3-4 year deal. If you're lucky enough to survive that third contract is so hard to attain.
Yeah, very, very few get it. I think, in reference to having, like you said, the middle class getting kind of X'd out, a lot of that, that's where I think the problem with the league is now. Just there's not enough old guys kind of really showing the young guys the way as far as how to prep for a game, maturity, and just kind of having a big brother in the locker room to talk to about life issues and things you may be going through on and off the field. And I think that's what's hurt the NFL thus far. That's why you see some of the mishaps, off the field that a lot of these young guys go through. Because when I was in the Steelers, I always had 3 or 4, whether it was Casey Hampton or Byron Leftwich, or it was James Berry, or if it was Aaron Smith. Those guys were always great to go to about football on the field, but especially off the field. They taught you how to mature and kind of just be an adult about a lot of situations, especially when you're 20, 25, 26, you're still learning who you are. And so that's why it's important for a lot of these owners to kind of wake up and realize keeping a young guy and an older guy rather in the locker room is more beneficial than harm.
And and it's sad too, because some coaches recognize that and yet can't get their management to try to fix that up. And I'll give you an example. Was down in Jacksonville in training camp. I was talking to Gus Bradley, and I thought that they had a great draft. They got couple good pieces on defense as far as free agency. Was able to get some good draft choices in there, and they go from like 28th to 6th as far as yardage allowed on defense. But the one thing that Gus Bradley said is, well, the one thing I know we're missing is those veteran guys that can help lead the team and help the young guys mature. And unfortunately, not all the young guys matured that year. Gus Bradley now has to go to San Diego to be a defensive coordinator. The guys, like, for example, going to Atlanta, was able to see what Dwight Freeney was able to do for about 3 or 4 of the guys on that defensive line, whether it's Vic Beasley or even a veteran like Adrian Claiborne. Really helping them out.
And like you just mentioned, some things are just out of a coach's hands. He can't be in a locker room 24/7, but the culture he implements, a lot of it, falls on his shoulders. And for an old guy being in a locker room trying to help a young guys get around him, is pretty much know how to handle situations. That comes from, the GM to the owner realizing, like, listen, it's funny, when I was with the Jets, we had my second year with the Jets, we had the second youngest team in the NFL. And we had a lot of guys who had played a lot of football. A lot of those guys were willing leaders. They were more, listen, I'm going to play my ball, do the best, and I'm going to lead by that way. Then it was guys like me and Eric Decker who were more vocal to try to, kind of push guys in more of a positive way. And that's a struggle in itself that, even a coach can't. That's something that a locker room kind of has to figure out themselves. So there's a lot of issues that fall in that regard. But old guys in the locker room is important, and it's important to kind of keep guys who've been with the organization for a while, keep those guys there. That's why the Steelers and the Patriots and Seattle, they keep guys who've been through the wars with them. And it's easy for the young guys who do come to say, hey, there's a guy who's been there, done that. I'm going to follow him and have no ego about doing that.
Yeah, and that's one. You're right about the good organizations, because they take that into account, and the Steelers have probably been one of the best in that, because for the linebackers you have a James Harrison and a Lawrence Timmons. The offensive linemen, there was always a good kind of a flow where you had some veterans that were there to help out. Like yourself and Max Starks. Although I still remember the one game Max came back. Right, he was in Phoenix at the time. I don't know. Was that an injury that you had that opened up the door for Max to come back? Because he was actually sitting in a bar the Sunday before he played, and was watching games on all the games that were going on NFL Ticket or something like that, Sunday Ticket. And so then next thing you know, he not only gets back, but he gets a chance to start for the Steelers. Yeah,
that's when Marvell went down. I know what you're talking about. Yeah. So I know one thing about being a Steeler, it's always the next man up, and they take pride in that. And they do a good job of trying to get their guys back off the shelf as far as injury-wise. John Nowry does a great job of really rehabbing, really getting guys back from the field. And, for Max, just like me, we both had injury-plagued careers, but, we don't take anything back in regards that we gave it all we got. And for a lot of guys that's looking at, maybe my career or James Harrison's career, there's no way you can't take away from the fact that what you invest in your body is what you get out of your career. And Ray Lewis is another guy who took pride in being on top of himself 24 hours, and he had a great career. So, for a lot of young guys coming in, you don't see it because you're not affected by it. And when you get up there in age, it creeps up on you. Sometimes it's too late.
Now, how do you look at the kind of this new trend over the last couple of years where guys, who've maybe made some good money are getting out of it a little earlier? The Anthony Davises. I mean, you can go through the whole list. Patrick
Right.
Willis. I mean, what is happening there? I mean, it's like, okay, guys that probably could have a 9, 10, 11-year career getting out of it, some right before they're 30 years old.
Well, I'm a firm believer. If you're not overly passionate about football or really love it to your core, it could burn out fast for you. And especially when you realize you now received or earned more money than you've ever had, and you have multiple options of what you want to do off the field. Football then becomes second nature to you. I mean, it comes in the back of the list rather, and you start thinking about opening businesses and doing this and doing that, and those are guys who just see football as a business, and guys like me, football was life. So it's definitely two different type of individuals. When I hear those guys who tap out early, I don't blame them. When you look at the concussions and you look at the injury rate, and you look at guys who have shot knees like me, and guys who have shot shoulders and ankles and so on. And if you're a young guy who's made good enough money and is you're done with it, then you're done with it, right? So I don't fault them in it, but there's definitely a difference from guys like the great Ray Brown, who played in 20 plus years, and all he wanted to do is play football. And like I just mentioned, if I could have played another 5 more years, I would have. But so every guy is different. A lot of guys just see, they're happy with the money they made, they're happy where they're at in life, and they just hang it up. And I have no problems with that.
Yeah, but it is a trend. More guys are getting out of it at an earlier age, which I guess, and that's a tough thing. Take us through the last year. So you played in 2015. What was 2016 like for you, trying to contemplate, okay, am I done? Am I going to start making moves into broadcasting?
It was tough. Yeah, it was really tough for me. Probably one of the toughest stages in my career and life I think I've ever been through. Because, like I said, I love the game so much. I think for me, I wanted to get back on the field this year. I exhausted every option trying to get back on the field with the stem cell and multiple therapies and getting back in shape. And I pretty much exhausted every option possible too. There's a lot of doctors like, listen, man, your knees are what they are. And everybody has that conversation where, doctor has to look you right in the eye and say, hey, you need to stop. And I had at least 1 or 2 doctors that said, Willie, you're putting yourself in a really bad predicament. You need to kind of just shut it down. You've had a great career. And that was hard for me because I felt like I was really, really like on my way to kind of be at that elite level. And I felt comfortable in my position of playing right guard for the Jets. And I felt like, me being with Nick and James Carpenter and Breno Giacomini and Brick, he had tapped that year too. So it was tough because I really felt like I had a lot left in the tank. But when I was just injury plagued and waking up every morning with your knees screaming and you trying to figure out how you're going to get through the day, that's a taxing toll. But I was prepared. I was prepared to go through that. I just wanted to just be out there. You can never regret, or take away from your days in your cleats. And so with all that said, it was a struggle. It was probably one of the toughest struggles I've ever been through. But, like anything, you just got to pick yourself up and, take one foot in front of another and just walk and figure it out that way. And I was able to kind of have, guys at ESPN and SNY in New York and Fox that, gave me opportunities as far as kind of, put my foot in the water and see if this is what I'm doing. And I love the media side of things, and hopefully it can be a great future for me.
And I would imagine it would be. So now what part of 2016 did the final doctor say, well, that's probably it, and then you finally made the decision, it's like, okay, it's time to start moving to something else?
Yeah, I think this year, I was planning to come back pretty much on the back half of the season. So after the week 8, I had went and received some stem cell, and it was doing well. And I think it was around Thanksgiving time. I was getting out of bed, and the season was kind of crawling along. And I looked at my fiance, and she looked at me, and she was just like, what are we doing? And for me, I just kind of just put my head down, and I kind of knew I was running on E. I was really low as far as morale, and my body just wasn't responding like I wanted it to. And I just had to have, like, listen, man, this is it. And it's tough. Spiritually it's tough because you can ask God for all you want, but the reality, just may not get it. And, I just had to really, I was taught from an early age, great men don't let their family fall. So I had to worry about my family at that point, and to worry about me and me moving forward. So I had to hang it up, and it's still tough. You still go through a grieving period. I'm still going through it. It's tough to watch guys who are on the field like that, who don't have the same type of nuts or guts like you, but because they're probably a little bit skinnier or they play a little more safer, they're going to have a little longer careers than you. So, but that's life, man. Like I said, I can't take away nothing from my career. It was what it was. Hopefully my sons, they can look at my career and say, my dad was a hell of a ball player, and that's all you can pray for.
And that's the great part about the opportunities in broadcasting. And it looks like with some of the things that you're involved with, I mean, that is an option. I mean, you're intelligent, you're a good communicator. Obviously, you know the game, and whether it's going to be on some of the New York stations or at the network, I mean, there's opportunities there that it looks like you're starting to take advantage of.
Yeah, and I've been, for a guy like me, I've been blessed where guys have been able to reach out to me and to kind of receive me with open arms, and that's a good feeling because when you hang up the helmet and you kind of hang up the pads, now you're in the mix of kind of finding out your identity and who you really are. And they always say football shouldn't define you; you should define football. But I've been playing this game since I was 14 years old. That's a hard task. Football's been everything. It's been me. I've only been introduced to the world by being a football player. So when you're hanging that side of the game up and you're kind of just in street clothes and you're looking around and you go from being a guy to a civilian, that's a hard egg to kind of push down the throat. And so now that's what I'm going through. I'm going through just learning how to be a professional, how to prepare for shows or anything I'm doing, and really kind of going to the nitty gritty of things so I can be the best I can be on air. And a lot of producers, a lot of people have really been a crutch for me, and it's been a blessing so far.
Yeah, and that's the great thing, because then you can look back and say, what a story and what a career you had. You came out of Hofstra, a small school that had a good football tradition, and you make it into the NFL. It's a great success story. 9 really great years. I mean, really, you can't. It's hard to top that.
Yeah. Listen, I try to. I wish I could have got that 10. I wanted the 10 bad, but on books it's 9, and then that's what it is. So it's tough to kind of. It's kind of swallow, because 10 is the golden number for a lot of ball players. But, I was there for 10 years. I was credited 9 years because I was on IR during the 2010 season. But, like I said, it's a situation where I sit back and I just look at the good times and the relationships. And, I was coached by Bill Cowher my rookie year and coached by Mike Tomlin, then went on to New York and coached by the great Rex Ryan and to leave my career with Todd Bowles, who I have the utmost respect for. I was coached by some amazing coaches and some amazing men. So I'm extremely blessed in that regard.
Well, Willie, congratulations and best of luck in now the post career, which looks like it's going to go very well. Willie, thank you for joining us.
Appreciate you guys. Y'all be blessed.
That's it for this week's edition of Schooled. You can follow me on Twitter at ClaytonESPN. Thanks for listening. Class dismissed.